The sound was unbearable, a bone-deep vibration that made grown men weep and children cover their ears in terror. For 3 months, the residents of Millbrook had endured the relentless acoustic nightmare emanating from Nexus Industries' new manufacturing facility. Windows cracked from the frequency. Dogs howled incessantly. Elderly Mrs. Patterson had been hospitalized twice for stress-induced heart palpitations. The town that had once welcomed the tech giant with open arms now lived in a state of sonic hell, and no amount of money seemed capable of buying them peace. Marcus Chen pushed his wire-rimmed glasses up his nose as he stared at the latest acoustic modeling report, his hands trembling slightly from exhaustion. As Nexus Industries' chief technology officer, he commanded a team of 47 of the world's brightest acoustic engineers, each with advanced degrees from MIT, Stanford, and Caltech. They had spent $12 million trying to solve what should have been a straightforward noise reduction problem. Yet here they sat, defeated by sound waves. "Sir, we've tried everything," said Dr. Sarah Williams, his lead engineer, her voice hoarse from another sleepless night. Active noise cancellation, acoustic metamaterials, phase inversion systems, nothing works. The harmonic resonance created by the interaction between our machinery and the local geography is unlike anything we've encountered. Marcus rubbed his temples, feeling the weight of 40,000 jobs hanging in the balance. CEO Victoria Sterling had made it clear: solve the problem in 2 weeks, or shut down the facility. The company's stock had already plummeted 30% as news of the Millbrook catastrophe spread across social media. Protesters gathered daily outside their headquarters, carrying signs that read, "Corporate greed equals community suffering." Meanwhile, 3 floors below in the basement of the Nexus building, Miguel Santos pushed his cleaning cart down the polished marble hallway, humming softly to himself. At 42, Miguel had been working as a night janitor for 6 years, ever since his wife Carmen had passed away from cancer, leaving him to raise their 8-year-old daughter Sophia alone. The job wasn't glamorous, but it paid the bills and allowed him to be home when Sophia returned from school each day. Miguel had learned to find beauty in routine. He took pride in his work, ensuring every surface gleamed, every trash bin was emptied, every corner was dust-free. But more than that, he listened. During his quiet night shifts, Miguel had developed an almost supernatural ability to hear the building's rhythms, the hum of ventilation systems, the whisper of elevator cables, the subtle creaks that spoke of structural stress. Tonight was different. As Miguel cleaned the executive floor, he couldn't help but overhear the heated discussions spilling from the conference room. Through the glass walls, he watched the team of engineers gesticulating at whiteboards covered in complex equations and acoustic wave patterns. He had seen them working frantically for months, their faces growing more haggard with each passing week. Miguel had never finished high school. Pregnancy and poverty had forced him to work construction jobs from age 16. But Carmen had always said he had a gift. "You hear things others don't, Amor," she would tell him as he diagnosed problems with their old car just by listening to the engine, or identified which pipe was leaking behind their apartment wall by the subtle changes in water pressure sounds. As he emptied the wastebaskets, Miguel found himself studying the discarded papers covered with acoustic formulas. Something about the wave patterns reminded him of his childhood in rural Mexico, where he had spent hours in the limestone caves near his grandfather's farm. The old man, a master craftsman who built guitars by ear alone, had taught Miguel that sound wasn't just physics, it was alive, organic, full of personality and emotion. "The cave sings different songs depending on where you stand," his grandfather had explained in Spanish, his weathered hands shaping wood with impossible precision. "You must listen not just with your ears, but with your heart. Sound wants to find harmony, you just have to help it along the right path." For 3 nights, Miguel found himself lingering near the conference room, watching the engineers struggle with increasingly desperate solutions. Their approach was purely technical, using brute force to cancel unwanted frequencies rather than understanding why those frequencies existed in the first place. It was like trying to stop a river by building a dam instead of redirecting its natural flow. On Thursday night, Miguel made a decision that would change everything. As he cleaned around the acoustic modeling equipment, he noticed something the engineers had missed. The computer simulation showed the sound waves as abstract mathematical entities, but Miguel saw them differently. To him, They looked like the air currents he had watched swirl through those limestone caves, seeking the path of least resistance, yearning for a place to rest. Sophia had been asking more questions about his work lately. "Papa, why do you look so worried when you come home?" she had asked that morning, her dark eyes full of concern that no 8-year-old should carry. "There are people in our town who can't sleep because of loud noises, Mija," Miguel had explained, stirring sugar into his coffee with the same precise motions he used to buff floors. "The smart people are trying to fix it, but it's very difficult. Maybe you could help them, Papa. You always know how to fix things." That innocent suggestion had planted a seed. Now, standing alone in the conference room at 2 a.m., Miguel picked up a red marker and approached the whiteboard. His hand shook as he began to draw. Not equations, but flowing lines that represented how sound moved through space, how it interacted with materials, how it could be guided rather than stopped. The next morning, Marcus arrived early to find an unauthorized drawing on his whiteboard. His first instinct was anger. Some janitor had defaced months of critical work. But as he studied the simple diagram, something clicked. The flowing lines showed acoustic pathways that their computers had somehow missed, natural channels where sound could be redirected rather than destroyed. "Dr. Williams, come look at this," Marcus called, his voice tight with excitement and disbelief. Sarah rushed over, expecting to see vandalism. Instead, she found herself staring at what might be the solution they had desperately sought. "This is, actually brilliant. Whoever drew this understands acoustic flow in a completely intuitive way. It's like they can see sound as a living system." The security footage revealed the unlikely artist, Miguel Santos, the quiet janitor whom most employees had never even noticed. Marcus found him that evening, carefully cleaning the laboratory equipment with the same methodical precision he brought to everything. "Excuse me, Miguel." Marcus felt awkward, uncertain how to bridge the vast gap between their worlds. "I wanted to ask you about the drawing you made." Miguel's face flushed with embarrassment. "I'm sorry, sir. I know I shouldn't have touched the board. I was just—" "No, you don't understand," Marcus interrupted gently. "Your drawing, it might be exactly what we need. Can you tell me how you knew to draw those pathways?" Miguel looked up at this brilliant man who commanded respect from everyone in the building, and saw only genuine curiosity. "My grandfather, he built guitars. He taught me that sound is like water, it wants to flow somewhere. You can't stop water by standing in front of it. You have to give it a better place to go." Over the next week, an extraordinary partnership formed. Miguel's intuitive understanding of acoustic behavior, combined with the engineering team's technical expertise, produced a solution that was both elegant and revolutionary. Instead of fighting the problematic frequencies, they would create carefully designed acoustic channels, physical structures that would guide the sound waves into underground chambers where they could dissipate harmlessly. The solution required precise calculations to ensure the redirected sound wouldn't create new problems elsewhere. Miguel couldn't perform the complex mathematics, but his spatial understanding of sound flow guided the engineers to approaches they had never considered. He would describe how the sound wanted to move, and they would translate his insights into technical specifications. "It's like having a translator between us and the physics drive." Williams marveled. "Miguel can hear things our instruments can't detect." The implementation took 2 weeks of round-the-clock work. Miguel found himself officially assigned to the project as a consultant, a title that made Sophia beam with pride when he explained it to her. "My papa is helping the smart people fix the town," she announced to her class, her chest puffed out with 8-year-old pride. On the day of the test, half the town gathered outside the Nexus facility. The machinery started up as usual, and for a heart-stopping moment, the familiar painful vibration filled the air. Then, gradually, the sound began to change. The harsh frequencies softened, redirected into Miguel's carefully designed channels. Within 10 minutes, the cacophony had transformed into a gentle hum barely louder than distant traffic. Mrs. Patterson, released from the hospital just for this moment, stood in her garden without covering her ears for the first time in months. Children played in the park across from the facility, their laughter replacing the sounds of suffering that had haunted Millbrook for so long. Victoria Sterling, the CEO who had threatened to close the facility, found herself shaking hands with a janitor whose formal education had ended at age 16 but whose understanding of sound had saved her company. Mr. Santos, she said, her usually commanding voice soft with genuine respect, how can we ever thank you? Miguel thought of Sofia, of the scholarship fund the company had established in Carmen's memory, of the new acoustic engineering program they were creating at the local community college. But mostly, he thought of his grandfather's words about sound wanting to find harmony. You already have, he said simply. You listened. The town of Millbrook learned something profound that summer. Genius doesn't always wear a diploma or speak in technical jargon. Sometimes it comes quietly, carrying a mop and a heart full of compassion, seeing solutions where others see only problems. Miguel Santos had reminded them all that the most powerful innovations often spring not from sophisticated algorithms, but from the timeless human ability to listen, really listen, to the world around us. In the end, it wasn't advanced degrees or expensive equipment that saved Millbrook. It was one man's willingness to care about his neighbor's suffering, combined with the wisdom to know that every problem, no matter how complex, has a heart that can be understood through kindness, patience, and the courage to offer help even when you think you have nothing valuable to give. The sound of Millbrook these days is different, filled with children's laughter, birds singing, and the gentle hum of machinery that finally learned to whisper instead of scream. And if you listen carefully on quiet nights, you might hear something else. The echo of an old man's voice, carried on the wind from a limestone cave in rural Mexico, reminding us that sound, like love, always wants to find its way home.